Now, it's quite hard to think that anything's going to ever dethrone WoW. Other than WoW, I think the only thing that can kill it is itself, you know, by alienating the community and things like that. And adding paid services into Classic has probably lost them some people already who are, you know, sticking by their morals and everything, which I totally understand. I mean, people are saying about Final Fantasy XIV apparently taking over, you know, it's got more subscribers than retail and stuff like that. I mean, maybe it has. I've tried Final Fantasy XIV. If you watch me over on Twitch, you've probably seen me stream it, and I'm still trying to force myself to get into it. But I'll be honest with you, it's not really blown me away like it has everybody else. I mean, there's guys from our guild that are basically not living on it, but you know, they're playing more Final Fantasy XIV than they are on WoW, because they just say there's more content and it's more engaging. I need to get at least into the first expansion before I really pass judgment, but at the moment, it's fairly average, in my opinion, but I am going to stick with it. That's not the point of today. I want to talk about Ashes of Creation. So the verbal NDA was lifted a while ago, but I chose not to make a video about it purely because I didn't know what to say. And I mean that honestly, I didn't know what to say, because I think there's a lot of people who are thinking that this game's going to come soon, and trust me, it's not. It's fantastic. Every minute of the alpha. So I bought into the alpha, by the way. There was no streamer or YouTuber privileges here. I didn't get invited to the game or anything like that. I literally had to buy it. Like, if you wanted to get into Alpha 1, you would have to buy it. Is it worth the investment at the moment? It depends. I think if you're looking for fresh, something new, you know, content to create, if that's what you do, then yeah, maybe. But if you're actually looking for a game to actually play, to enjoy, I wouldn't say that's the one. Before we get too far in, let me just take a quick minute to shout out the sponsor of today's video. And it's New Desk Day, courtesy of Flexispot. Thank you, Flexispot. Unbox your desk, take out some stuff, read some instructions, try and make head nor tail of it. Then open some more stuff, get some more things out of the packaging, read the instructions once again, and then boom, you've got a fully mechanical desk constructed. Yeah, if only it was that easy, but it's definitely worth the pain. So it's got memory functions to be able to store the height that you want it set to when you're standing or when you're sitting, so it's simply one touch to go up to the height of your standing desk and one touch to go back down to your sitting desk. It's got cable tidy functions underneath the desk, so it can keep everything looking nice and tidy. It's got anti-collision technology, so if it detects any sort of resistance, it'll either go back up or back down, whichever the safest direction was where you was using the desk before. It's fully customizable on their website, so you can add different worktops to it. You can add accessories such as even an exercise bike, which, let's face it, I need to lose a few pounds, so probably a good investment. Everything on the website is already extremely competitive, both price-wise and quality, but if you want to enjoy an extra £15 off any order over £150, then click the affiliate link in the description below. So yeah, Flexispot. Get yourself a desk, £15 off. I didn't even know I needed one until I got one. You know, it's a game changer, especially if you do long gaming sessions or, you know, long streaming, editing sessions, anything. Or if you work from home and you sat on Zoom calls or Teams meetings, you know, all day, being able to sit down and stand up, it sounds so basic, but it's actually brilliant. So let's crack on. Do you like the quick change? Change my t-shirt and cap. Quick. Oh, all right. Anyway, so if you don't know about Ashes of Creation, it's got some really, really bold goals. It's got huge open world PvP. It's got open world dungeons, obviously instance content, and then in sort of the raiding environment, if you're a really top guild, let's say, who's smashing through the first boss, it will sort of adapt, or this is the plan. So future bosses in that particular raid will then adapt to the skill of the raid, you know, that's really bold. So, you know, if you was to go in, let's use WoW as an example. If you went in and you smashed High King Morgar down in 20 seconds, then it'd be like, hang on, there's a lot of DPS in this group, you know, or that the healing in this group's really good. You know, it will then scale up in difficulty. So it might increase the boss's health, it might increase the boss's damage. It reacts, which I think is really interesting. And if it can be pulled off, and now this is the thing, I'm loving it so far. As I say, all the spot tests I've been on has been brilliant. I'm going to be streaming it on SJ Gaming Live, my live streaming YouTube channel. Links in the description. Please go over and subscribe. In fact, I'm going to be live on there either today or tomorrow. But the visual NDA is going to be lifted in just over a week. Now, why is this? It's both good and bad. I'm going to give you some rundowns on combat and everything that I've experienced so far, but I'm not sure that it's ready to be seen by the masses, if I'm completely honest. I mean, they're making really big changes constantly. The Intrepid team in general are doing a really fantastic job, and their communication with the community is amazing. And that's something that obviously I miss personally from Blizzard, you know, is that community engagement piece, which Intrepid are doing really well at the moment. You know, hats off to them. I'm not taking my hat off, my hair's a mess. But the combat, let's talk about the combat and who would it aim at? You know, you as a classic WoW player, would you be interested in Ashes of Creation if we was just talking about the combat? I really like it. Now, it's really, I'm not going to say it's slow, but you could compare it to classic combat. So it's got a decent bit of pace to it, but it's not like you're darting all over the place like you are on Final Fantasy XIV or WoW Retail. And now this may be the reason why I'm struggling with Final Fantasy XIV, because I personally think that the combat style and everything and the aesthetic of Final Fantasy XIV probably lends itself more to retail players than classic players, because it's not that sort of gameplay that I think people are playing classic TBC for. It is that more thought out combat, slightly slower paced, not flashing lights all over the place and mechanic after mechanic, back to back fire on the floor, lava flying from the sky. Do you know what I mean? That really fast paced, hectic sort of combat. Now, Ashes of Creation isn't that. Ashes of Creation, as I say, is closer to classic content that we probably enjoy. So it's got really cool abilities though. I mean, I'll give them that. I've played around with a few of the abilities, the healing as well, I've actually played around with, and it's quite fluid. And when I say fluid, I mean you press an ability and it goes off, and the sounds and the animations all seem to match, and it doesn't seem like you're waiting a long time for abilities to land. And that's a big thing for me personally. You know, like I've played Rift and all these other games that have come along like over the years, and you press an ability and the animation, because they've gone so much into like, you know, you jump up in the air, spin around and then fire some fire out, you know, it don't seem instant. These have got a really good balance between the animation and how long it actually takes for the ability to go off. And there's always something to do. As in, you've got like an auto attack, but you press it manually. So that could change. You've got to remember, all of this could change. It's going to go over loads and loads of iterations of patches and changes, you know, up until probably the beta, and then obviously it will be more the beta, it will be fixes. But in the alpha, it's going to be more refining these systems. So combat marked off, really good, actually. As I say, I enjoy the combat because I can sort of relate to it. I closely compare it to World of Warcraft Classic. And then we've got player housing. Like, the player housing system is phenomenal. And again, I really like player housing. If you've ever heard me talk about player housing on other videos, MMOs with player housing really draw me in, because it takes me back to my Star Wars Galaxies days, where you could have multiple houses on multiple different planets, you know, be part of different communities on those different planets. And Ashes of Creation's quite similar, because you're not limited to just having one house. You can have like a freehold, you can have an apartment somewhere like in a completely different city, or they call it a node system obviously, so in a completely different node. So you can start to know people. You know, you'll see the same sort of people constantly coming in and out of their houses or their apartments in that city, and it sort of will build a community, which sounds, you know, you might be like, oh, it's a bit cringy, but that's the sort of thing that we're looking for, or I'm looking for in a game, is that more community driven content. And the interesting thing with the housing system is they're limited. So, you know, you might have to wait for a house to become available, or buy one from someone. So you can buy houses when they go up for auction, because that's what happens when the node levels up, then the houses become available and they go to auction. And you'll put your bid in and say, right, I'll bid 200 gold on that house. If you win it, you don't have to keep it. You could sell it to someone later. So you could build that house up from a small little apartment type house, you know, and then build it up into a mansion, and then sell that mansion for big profit and move somewhere else. Much like real life, really. The housing system's brilliant, and then you do get sort of farms and stuff like that, so you can grow your own crops and things. You know, it's a really interesting sort of economy-driven, community economy-driven, should I say, sort of housing system. And PvP, there's loads. Huge open world PvP battles, there's sieges, there's caravan PvP, there's a lot of different systems. I'm not going to get into all of them, because I'll be honest with you, before I pass any, you know, comment on them, I really do want to test them myself, which, as I say, when the visual NDA is lifted and the month-long alpha starts in just over a week, it's all these systems that I'm going to be diving into. But the node system is genius. So if you don't know about the node system, basically, as the, you know, nodes form, so no two servers will be the same, or they shouldn't be the same. So as you do quests around a certain like village, it will start as like a little village, you know, it will slowly level up as more people are contributing to that node.
That creates really interesting gameplay that players can participate in. And part of what this node tool provides is for each city's character and identity to be unique to the players that develop it.
And then, you know, eventually it will grow into like a massive metropolis, but, you know, there's various different types. You know, it could be like an economy district or a religion-based district, and then depending on what faction, so whether it was dwarves or humans or whatever, you know, that contributed the most, it will take on their aesthetic. So think, if you're a dwarf, and you've got tons of your little dwarf friends running around with your little legs doing stuff, and you're doing it all around the same node, then when it levels up, it might look like Ironforge. You know, it'll have that dwarf aesthetic to it. And likewise, if you was human or, you know, whatever race you are. The customization as far as sort of player classes go, it's huge, and the options are massive. So you sort of go into an advanced class. This is so huge, it would take forever to talk through it, but when you create a character, you start your primary class. That primary class basically cannot change. So you'd be like fighter, tank, rogue, ranger, mage, you know, cleric, bard, whatever you create. And basically, when you get to level 25, you'll have a combination of your primary and secondary archetypes, and then obviously that will create your basically your new class. And secondary archetypes can be changed, by the way. This is all going from Ashes of Creation's wiki page, which I'll put a link in the description so you can go and find out as much or as little about the game as you want. But if we was to say, for example, you went fighter tank, you'd become a dreadnought. If you went fighter rogue, you'd become a shadowblade. Yeah, if you went ranger, you wanted to be a ranger, but you also wanted a bit of, you know, summoning ability, then obviously you become a falconer. You know, there's a lot of options here, and they're all going to get different abilities, and they're all going to play slightly different. But the good thing is, if you go, obviously your primary class will be what it is. You know, you would have to start a new class if you didn't like that. But what you specialize in when you become that dual archetype, you know, digging deeper down into the class when you hit 25 onwards, that can be changed. What it actually says on the wiki at the moment is if you want to change it, it could just be a case of going to a specific node and speaking to someone to basically respec. But it also says that it could be part of sort of a quest system. So if you want to change, you might then need to do, let's say you was your second archetype at 25, you was going into being a summoner, and then you want to go to being, I don't know, cleric, then you might have to do a very cleric-esque quest line to be able to sort of specialize now into that archetype. That's how I would do it, you know, make it so you can't like be mid-raid and then be like, oh, we need more whatever, and then go and quickly respec and go back. You know, make it a bit more, it hasn't got to be particularly long, it might only take 30 minutes or something like that, but long enough to stop people just switching constantly. I think that's probably the most important thing for me. And then you've obviously got guilds, you've got everything, so the social side that you would expect. I mean, as I say, not all of this is testable at the moment, but you know, over time, like certainly throughout July, if you check me out on SJ Gaming Live, like I said, links in the description, you'll be seeing me stream this quite a lot. Probably outside of raiding on TBC, this will be what I'm playing exclusively, just to get as much out of it as I can and really test it. You know, that's the whole point. I've bought into this game, and you know, it wasn't cheap. It was like $500 or whatever it was. You know, I've bought into it because I want it to succeed. You know, I want it to do well, and I want to do my part to make sure it does do well, because ultimately it ticks all the boxes. You know, player housing, good combat, aesthetically it looks brilliant, and I've not really spoke graphically about it. You probably, if you're playing on some sort of potato PC that, you know, struggles running TBC, or you lag in raids or anything like that, you're going to need to upgrade before Ashes, because it is quite a graphically intensive game, but you know, there's a lot going on all the time. I'm not saying, you know, if you've got sort of a mid-end PC, you know, $1,000 PC or something like that, you're probably going to be absolutely fine. I'm not saying you need to rush out and buy the latest RTX or anything like that, but you know, it probably, you might want to think about an upgrade. I'm personally even thinking about a couple of upgrades before I even start playing on the alpha, just to make sure it's as smooth as possible, obviously for the stream. And I think that's about where I want to leave it. So my final thoughts, closing thoughts about Ashes of Creation is it's got so much potential. The combat's good, it looks good, there's a lot of things that are missing. I'm not going to go over absolutely everything that are missing, but some examples would be voiced NPCs. You know, I mean, that's a big one. Being able to, like, the UI, there's no customization there at all at the moment, so you can't even rebind anything. But that's not, you know, it's not like that's how it's going to go live. It's just because it's a very, very early alpha. But ultimately, should you be excited about it? I think you should. But should you be excited about it now? I'd probably hold off a bit, because I genuinely, if I was to hazard a guess, I would probably say like a 2023 release, like, quite honestly. I mean, we're over halfway through 2021 now, so, you know, I reckon 1.5 to 2 years, it's probably going to be around the same time as Wrath, which could be dangerous, because Wrath, I think Wrath Classic is going to get a lot of attention. Don't know if they're going to want to go head to head with that, so I would be trying to get this out either earlier than Wrath or a good 3 to 6 months after Wrath, maybe when there's a bit of a content drought and you can pull people away from it. But personally, I would be trying to get it out before then. So let's hope for a late 2022 release. Yeah, why not? So if you like this video, please like, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.